Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, has expressed deep concerns over the country's rising dependence on imported food. Speaking at the 2025 Agric and Export Finance Expo in Lagos, the minister revealed that Nigeria spends over $10 billion annually on food imports, including staples like wheat, rice, sugar, fish, and tomato paste. Despite having vast arable land, a youthful population, and a favorable climate condition, Nigeria continues to rely heavily on foreign food supplies, placing pressure on foreign exchange reserves, and of course, exposing the economy to the global supply shocks. The minister described the situation as unsustainable and called for urgent reforms to boost local production, invest in agro-processing, and promote food self-sufficiency. All right, so joining us to have this conversation and to unpack this interesting $10 billion food import that we are spending is Bamidele Ayemibo. He's a lead consultant, 3T Impex Consulting. And I also have Hussein Olariwaju. He's the CEO of Hack Technology Management Services. Yes, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me this evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
For having me.
I was just trying to picture what...
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I was just trying to picture what $10 billion, right? If it was the reverse, that we were earning money from export, and we were earning $10 billion, if it was the reverse, what that would do to our economy. But that's just in my head. Now, let us break down this situation, right? Is it by any chance true that we are truly spending this much, importing staple foods into our country? I'll start with you, Bamidele.
I don't think so. So when I saw I didn't know the title when I was contacted. So when I had to go and check. It's not up to that, but it's close to that, about 8 billion in my opinion. So it's not up to that. But I mean, 8 billion is still a lot. And it's good the minister is saying it. The only thing I have issue with what you said was that there is a need for urgent policy to reverse it. That should be the work of the government. I mean, they have basically drafted his own job description to be able to ensure that reverse before he leaves office or before the tenure of the administration. But if you look at that data, two major products, rice is not really significant. I don't know where they got the rice from. It's mainly wheat and sugar. So if I work with the 8 billion I research, about half of that is actually wheat and sugar. And interestingly, we can produce both of them. So, I mean, for me, the solution is easy. Maybe along the line, we'll talk about the issue with wheat. What I think is the issue, why we are not doing what we're supposed to do in that regard. But I know there is Dangote sugar, and I think they've licensed a number of refineries to be able to produce sugar locally. So, but I mean, if 50% of that is actually by sugar and wheat, then we can fix it. I mean, it should be something we need to fix, and it's very necessary we fix it, because if we don't even have enough forex to be able to be paying import bills.
Okay, let me come to you saying, because from what I gathered is that Nigeria, even though it's heavily dependent on imported food items right now, Nigeria actually we have about 85 million hectares of arable land, right? And only 40% of that land is being cultivated. That is what I am gathering, from the information. So please, Hussein, help me break down. Why are we in this place where we have everything and yet we are spending so much importing?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think one of our major issues is the caliber of people who are farming, actually. We have very low level of people who are doing mechanized farming, and while we have high level of farmers who are still doing manpower farming. And unfortunately, this set of farmers are actually heavily dependent on government intervention funds. And when those government intervention funds are not coming, now, quote me, in the government intervention fund, most of them look at it as a grant instead of them to see it as a business facility, support for them to grow. So we need to shift our mind from depending on government. We need to shift our mind kind of from depending on just government. We have to depend on government, and then on grants to more of business-oriented, cultivation. So we do have a lot at stake. And access to finance is one of the major issues that we are having. We have people who are giving financial support who do not actually think of the term of repayment is not favorable to agriculture, so to say. And then we also have insurance issue because we have high level of post-harvest losses, which also contribute to because we have very low processing plants, maybe let me say modular processors that we need to put in place. Then storage facility is also another issue. So we have a lot of people who are actually doing this farm. We have a lot of roadbed networks. So when they are moving from point A to point B, the distance to travel from where before you get to the destination, the food, perishable food, are already lost. So people prefer a processed food or probably import this kind of food into the system such that all these losses or all these damages is being controlled. So we need to work into infrastructure more, and we need to also change our mindset from government-dependent grants to business mindsets. I think these are the key things that we should be looking into.
I think I completely agree with you on that mindset shift, because I know that a lot of people, I've said this several times, a lot of people, how these intervention funds come in and they feel like it's free money, and it's not supposed to be so. You're supposed to use it to build the business, and if it is even possible, return the funds back to the government so that somebody else will be able to access that same fund. So there's a what's it called, a cycle that helps to boost more people in that chain. But let me come back to you, Bamidele. From what you said 50% of these, you called it 8 billion, but the research says it's 10 billion. But let me break down something for you. $2 to $2.5 billion goes to wheat, $1.5 billion to $2 billion goes to rice, $1 billion dollars goes to sugar. There is fish, there is tomato. 1 billion to fish, then 500,000 to 400 million rather goes to tomato paste. Then other dairy products will still take about 2 to 3 billion. That totals about 10 billion. There is no one product inside this list that I have mentioned that I think we do not have the capacity, to produce. And I loved what Hussein said about wastage, because I know that there was a time, I think Dangote has a tomato plantation. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was a time where there was a report around how much was lost. You understand? Because they did not have processing or preservation plants or something like that. I can't recall the exact story now. But Bamide, let me come back to you. Right? Do you think it is? Is it true to what Hassan said about we don't have mechanized farmers that is the issue, or we do not have the willpower as a country to feed ourselves? Which is truly the issue?
Both of them. Here are the problem. 75% of the farmers are peasants. So like Hussein said, a number of them are not mechanized, a good number. We have a lot of post-harvest losses, about 30-50% according to Food and Agriculture Organization. We have insecurity on the farmland, by the way. We are majorly rainy season farmer, very few irrigation farming, meaning we can produce multiple times a year for most land. Low yield per hectare for a number of seedling we are using. And like you said, less than about 40% yield on cultivated land and inadequate funding. So there are a lot of problems contributing to it. And when you talk about willpower, I agree. But I want to say, okay, maybe this administration have done something a little bit different. BOA has been given 1 trillion naira, according to the news. And I think the president approved it before it was a pledge, but now since they've approved that fund, to be able to fund production of some particular agro commodity. So if that is true and the money is well deployed, we probably begin to see a reverse in this. But I know Nigeria, there are many political farmers. There are many political farmers who are not taking the money to return. A number of people see it as a national cake. That is why the Anchor Borrower Program, another initiative of CBN during the Emefiele era, failed, such that some people are still being debited today. They've already mapped their account across different banks. If any money enters the account, the money will be debited. That's how far the government is going to recover that money from people that collected the money and refused to pay back. That's another challenge, which is what Hussein also alluded to, the fact that many of them see it as a grant rather than a loan to be able to grow the business. I think there was no willpower before. I think this government is trying to demonstrate willpower with the kind of funding they are giving BOA to be able to fund massive production of agric in the country. So if the fund is well deployed, maybe we'll begin to see a reverse from next year.
Hussein, let me come back to you. 1 trillion to Bank of Agriculture, according to Bamidele. Now, do you see, because, these things are so beautiful on paper. Have you seen that truly being disbursed to the farmers that need it? Because me, I'm a farmer. We have a palm plantation, and we never see that money. Do you understand? It seems like it's a select few that keep on accessing that money. I've said this several times. Please, you should go and show me the way. How do I access that money? Because I feel like a lot of farmers that are truly doing the work are not accessing that money. Meanwhile, you're having a lot of portfolio farmers accessing those kind of money. So break it down for me. How impactful is that $1 trillion? And truly, are the farmers truly getting that funding?
So, like I said earlier, I did speak to access to finance. And then there are a lot of bureaucracy around access to this finance, and which is a major issue that we have to look into. Take, for example, a farmer that only have a farmland. You're asking him to have a collateral to back his farm. And we don't have insurance to say, okay, I take over if any to be able to, secure this money. So we have issues with the criteria being used for this finance. That's one issue. Then, like I said earlier, I did speak to the fact that in the past, just like Bamdele said, as regards to Anchor Borrowers Fund, there are a lot of political farmers. There are commodity association who have actually a commodity association, to deploy this funding, and they are being used for political deployment, and it is not getting to the real farmers. So that is one issue that we have. And now, who is to safeguard this money? Because it's a security. They also need a security. So there is need for a simple, criteria to access this fund. Probably it is farm mapping. We need to be looking into where there are more visibility in terms of farm mapping to people who they disburse this money to. We also need to look into partnership in terms of farm inputs, probably the seedlings, the fertilizer, and what have you. Then we also need to look deep into more of a off-takers collaboration from onset. And that is another issue. I give you an example. There was an Anchor Borrower Fund with, there is this cassava bread fund, which is expected to, BOA is expected to fund a part, BOI is expected to fund a part. BOA did fund the part of cultivation, but when it comes to harvest, BOI did not fund the part of processing machine. And what happened? Eventually, this farm was resulted to post-harvest loss. So I think we need to have proper synergy from onset, not just the money. The process has to be right.
And I totally agree with you, because it's not, I've said this several times, that we don't just throw money at things. If there is a problem, I think what is most important that we always lack, that I see at play, is that we are not strategic as to dissecting the problem. Then now preferring solutions that are like square pegs in square hole. I don't know if you get the point. There's a problem. All we know how to do in Nigeria is that just throw money at the problem and the problem will be solved. But that's not the solution. You must first of all strategically look at it. I mean, Bamilede mentioned a few. You've also mentioned a few. One of the biggest challenges that we have in Nigeria, that we are having issues around food insecurity, is the state of insecurity in the country, that is threatening food security in our nation, because a lot of farmers are not even able to go to their farmlands to go and farm. So it's not just one problem. We have, like I think Bamidele alluded to the fact that the problem is hydra-headed. We have too many branches of the problem, and for us to be able to solve that problem, we can't just pick one and say, okay, let's throw money at it. And it's not going to work that way. We need to be intentional. But it's very sad. It's a very sad development that, despite having factories like Dangote Sugar and all of that, we are still having to import sugar, we're still having to import rice, we're still having to import fish, wheat, tomato. Like, literally, these are things we used to grow in our backyard. You can literally have, like, tomato. If you go to the tomato market right now, maybe in mile 12, I think it's mile 12 they call it, you will see so much wastage on the floor. So it's not, there is a fundamental problem. And I think we are not really tackling the problem from the roots. So let us go back, Bamilele, because we want to be intentional about this conversation tonight and profile real solutions. Yes, we know that there are issues around climate change and all of that, but the problems that we can control, right? Tell me, how do we start to go about it intentionally so we can reverse this, what's it called, 10 billion? Let's convert that into export revenue generated instead.
Let me say something about what Zin said. I've done training for some government agency that have some services that many people are not aware of. You're a farmer. Are you aware of NISAL?
No.
So you should Google NISAL, Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing Agricultural Lending Scheme, NISAL. Now, that's a body created during the, I think it was Goodluck Jonathan into Buhari's administration. Now, one of the things they do is to de-risk agri. And so I'm saying this firsthand. So these are not what they told me. These are things I'm involved in because I work with them, I've trained them, and I'm aware of people they've done this for. But one thing I've always spoken to them about is that they don't publicize what they do. I think they don't, it's like you have something and you're not making noise enough for many Nigerians to know that exists. Then we have NAIC, that's the insurance arm that support their services. So they have an insurance program. And they have this program. Now, do you know what NISA does? If you go to a bank for a loan for agri, NISA will guarantee part of that loan so that the collateral you provide for that loan is reduced, number one. If you finish paying that loan, they will give you, I think, about 15-20%, like an incentive for paying back your loan, encouraging the bank to give more. And I'm talking fact here. But the challenge is very few are aware and very few have taken advantage of NISA. NISA is in every CBN office nationwide. They have an office within CBN nationwide. So that means if you want to see them in Lagos, they have an office in Lagos in CBN location. And I need to put that out there so we understand the fact that there are some initiatives, which I think is the major challenge for government. And I asked them, the last time I had them, they said they don't have a lot of budget, that if they make all the noise, they might have more than enough requests, which is where the recapitalization that government is doing make a lot of sense. Now, coming to your question, we can reverse that problem. Let me give you an example of wheat. There is an unwritten rule in Nigeria around wheat. The government is not ready to support wheat. And the reason is simple. I'm aware, I don't know how true this is, that some nation we import from in North America have said if we develop that value chain, it's going to affect their national security. And because it affects their own national security, they won't give us the aid they've been giving to us. And that has slowed down. I don't know how true this is, but all the signs show, because Nigeria can produce wheat. Why is Nigeria not producing enough wheat for all the millers, flour mills, all the people using it for noodles and the like in Nigeria to be able to have enough? Why are we not doing that? So I want to believe there is an element of truth in this, And that probably explains the reason why we are not getting what we expect from that sector. And that might also dovetail to other areas, but at least for wheat, I'm very much aware of the fact that there are a lot of politics around the issue of wheat. And so I'm surprised if the minister is saying that we're importing a lot of wheat, whereas Nigeria can produce wheat, and we're not doing so much about it, which is why I said, saying we need to put on policy to reverse it is its job to be able to ensure that, look, we want to say we want to produce this quantity of wheat this year, to be able to reverse the volume, the funding, rather, the forest we are using to fund import, and be able to save that forest to be able to increase our foreign reserve, because we're going to save forest and then be able to show up our foreign reserve instead of the current situation we're having, which of course eventually impact on the value of Naira and drive down the inflation we're having in the country. So I believe we can do it. I believe we can reverse it. The government will just be very deliberate that they want to fix that problem, and they will fix it.
So, Babylele, I'm going to put you to this now. My farmers shall be contacting you after the show for NISA.
Yes, I will link them up. I will link them up with NISA. I have their contact. I will link them up with NISA.
You know what? CBA, they don't need budget. I will be their mouthpiece. You understand? Let me go through the process and successfully access the money. I will help them do the publicity for free. You know what? Let's go on a break. When we come back from the break, we'll continue this amazing conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, I'm having an amazing time. If you just tuned in, we're discussing, or our discussion centers on what Nigeria's $10 billion food import bill says about our agricultural crisis. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us a message on our YouTube link. Send us SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. You can also call our phone line 07025007749 or 07014242420. It will be nice to hear what you have to say. So, Babylele, I'm going to be reaching out to your DM after the show, because that NISA, myself, I need the money. But yeah, I like what you said.
So they don't give money. You get the money from the bank, but they guarantee.
They give us the guarantee. No problem. You know, what I love about what you said is the fact that, you know, that then takes care of the collateral issues that a lot of people are unable to provide. That's number one. And number two, it gives an incentive for farmers to pay back the loan, because it doesn't make any sense that there is money available. So, for instance, this 1 trillion that is available, if farmers understood, like what Hussein was saying, if they understood that this was a loan that should help build your business, and you are able to pay back that loan, you are giving an opportunity for the next farmer coming behind to be able to also build his own business. But when we see it like free money, then that's where we continue to have a problem. So, I mean, they say that Nigeria's 10 billion annual food import bill, right, it highlights serious gap in the agricultural sector, but it also presents a massive opportunity for reforms and revival, right? And as we had started the conversation on reversing this issue, I want to come to Hussein. What would you think your idea of a reversal should look like, if you had something like a solution to prefer? Because I would love as much as possible for us to stay on solution at this point.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's interesting to know that the data we're speaking to, which is $10 billion, is even underestimated, because they are from the formal sector estimation. We don't have the accurate data from the informal sector. So going forward, I think it is necessary for us to also integrate. Something happened sometimes last week in Kano after a conference on agriculture that happened. You know, maize was brought into the farm, and because it is imported, there is a price tag to the cost of per ton or per kg that is being sold. Meanwhile, farmers that have actually labored over time and factor in their cost. Take for example, a bag of corn that is expected that they've expected that EOP should take up, let's say, 55,000 naira per 50 kg. When the imported bag came in, it was sold for 35,000. Automatically, the farmers are at loss. So, because they don't have data, there is no accurate data to synchronize what is being imported and what is locally produced. This is another discouraging factor. So, number one thing for us to move forward is one, data. We need to be intentional about gathering data and bringing in the informal sector into the formal sector. Number one thing is that. Secondly, is also we need to go more on preservations. For storage, we need to be intentional about storage so that we can have year in, year out. Because, of course, if you have storage and things do not get spoiled the way they are, the perishable goods or farm produce are getting damaged, we should have a limited import. The import level should be low, right? Should reduce drastically. Then again, microprocessing like modular processing plants should be in place such that the distance for every locality, what they are producing, there is a microprocessor, modular processor that can actually process it and be to serve those community within that cultivation area. It should also be looked into. Another key factor that we are actually neglecting is our education system. We need to begin, because we have a lot of students in our agricultural department who do not even have interest in the course they are studying. We need to begin to collaborate with universities that have thousands of hectares of land uncultivated. We need to collaborate with universities to engage these students in practicals and then farm, from produce, support the economy or probably the consumption of the produce within the university or tertiary education system and also the community. That will also reduce the level of our importation of agri produce. Then we need to also look into revamping our NYC to be more productive, more especially for people who are interested in farming, to support them. And I agree with Bamdele on issue of NISA, because we don't have data. Even aside the awareness, there is also no data to justify certain actions that will enable people to, know what is obtainable and what is not. Today, as I speak to you, it's not just about accessing the fund, I said earlier, it's more of the process flow. How many soil test labs do we have in Nigeria to even test the acidity or the alkaline of the soil, how viable the soil is going to look like? How many testing environments do we have? These are factors that we need to also put in place, which are critical for if we have to move forward, not just provide the fund, because this actually also speaks to how viable the business is going to look like.
Very, very apt. Bamidele, I would like for you to continue on the solutions, but speak to infrastructure. Because I think one of the biggest challenges that we've seen is infrastructure. We're talking road network. I was talking about the agro processing. I don't think you heard me when I was saying it, and I think Hussein actually touched on it, right? Investing in those kind of things. What would a good manufacturing plant look like in terms of what is workable? Because I know in some parts of the world they have massive storage, massive processing plants, so your small farmers will just carry their it's like you just go and do what you need to do and you have your end product without having to invest in those kinds of infrastructure. So speak to infrastructure. We're talking roads, we're talking power, we're talking maybe plants, processing plants or storage facilities. We're talking all of those things that would just help the system, stay the value chain to be sustained.
The northern part of Nigeria contributes significantly to the agricultural production. And the research by, I think it was in Katsina that this research was done, confirmed that one of the biggest challenge of farmer is not even fertilizer, is desert encroachment. Desert encroachment. And that the government needs to do all that is required to support them with tree planting, irrigation farming, all that is required to support, because to be able to boost their production. So the infrastructure around boosting production beyond providing new variety with better yield per hectare. I'm talking about hybrid. I'm talking about GMO. because I'm so much
don't bring that argument though. We will not live here today.
But hybrid. So to be able to improve yield per hectare and infrastructure to support more production. So it's important that the solution is research-based. It's not just like, I was just reading this evening also, and I saw that government are giving a lot of fertilizer. The law of racketeering around fertilizer. Do you know that Dangote produce fertilizer? Some states are still importing fertilizer. Why? Because what they make in terms of corruption of fertilizer is so much that buying from Dangote is not going to allow them to achieve that objective. So they would rather still import even though Dangote is producing. So we are used to doing some things because of what the people who are in charge of this thing get from it, not necessarily because it's providing solution to the problem. So infrastructure around production, I think is critical. Then it's not enough to produce. If 30-50% according to food and agriculture organizations of our produce are perishing rather, then we definitely need to do something about preservation, either by virtue of storage facility. Thank you. By virtue of facility to be able to either store or to process as soon as possible. So, for example, you go to a place like Benin, you see some mangoes in the middle belt, big mangoes. But nowadays, people are exporting dry fruit, dry mango. So why can't we begin to have a processing plant? Just like you said, you know, I visited a particular factory in Leicester in the UK some years back, and it has always been on my mind that, look, this is one of the things I wish we will be able to do to support SME in Nigeria. If I want to process, let's say I want to process dry fruit, for example, they have facility that we peel it, slice it, dry it, package it, that when I come back in 2 weeks, my product is ready for the market. So all I need to do is to supply the raw material, they'll do everything, and I will pay per unit that they'll produce for me, or per kg of my supply. That takes away a lot of headache of processing, of NAFDAC, of power, of so many things. And it will make them, farmer will think only of production and marketing, primary production rather, and marketing, and take the processing away from them. And this is happening in the UK. And they're taking us through the factory and seeing how farmers are bringing their product, and it's being converted to finished product, and they just come and big unit product and then sell it. So many products you are seeing, even though they are different brands, but they are from the same factory.
Oh yes, that's what they call that's what they call white labeling. Do you understand?
Yes, contract manufacturing.
That's what they call white labeling, because that is the only way. Imagine if we're not, as a farmer, you're not thinking about that headache. So just take the raw produce, right, and take it to where they will process it. And you, like you rightly said, you already know, and this even helps all those pilfering that farmers experience. I mean, the other day I saw a video on social media where a man was I think he was talking to two of his workers, only for them to raise the trunk of the car. I don't know if you saw that video, that they saw a lot of fish there. That is already a huge loss. Do you get my point? Like, it doesn't make any sense. As a farmer, you are thinking about the ones that are stealing your produce. You're thinking of so many things. But if you had somewhere where you could just weigh maybe 1 ton of coconuts, you take it straight to where it's going to be processed, and they bring back coconut flakes. You already know what should come out based on what it will just make life literally easier. But let me read some comments, then I'll come back to you, Hussein. He said, we saw reports that the textile mills are to be revamped to create imported, no mention of revamping the cotton farms. How can this disconnect be resolved? Then he goes on to say, that's from Saleh, he says, input cost is a major limitation for agric to be profitable. At a cost of 50 to 60K per bag, at the end of the day, very poor yield due to inability to deal with this. What is the way forward on this? I don't know if you got the question. Hussein, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. Yes. I did get the question very correctly. So I think for me, it's all about collaboration. There are a lot of input suppliers that are ready to do partnership and get what you have. Probably from produce, you can get the money sorted from that. But that is actually not the issue. Bamidele did mention about fertilizer, as area around fertilizer. So the problem we have in Nigerian sector is because we don't even test, we don't do proper soil test before we even go into planting. So sometimes NPK, probably you need more of calcium than nitrogen, but you are bringing in more nitrogen into a soil that already have excess nitrogen. Definitely it will affect your produce. So one thing at a time. It is not about the input. It's not about the cost of the input. Even the hybrid that we are talking about, there are causes, there are things that has resistance. Probably there are some microorganisms that affect mangoes and that do not affect probably yam. And then there is a way they transport the resistance in the yam into mango so that it does not affect going forward, it does not affect the mango once it's planted in the same environment, and it will improve the yield. We can have situations like that. But now, if we don't even know the nature of the land that we are actually planting into, what to fight, what to prepare, the land preparation and what have you, if it is not well prepared, it will affect our outputs. These are the critical things that we need to be looking into. And then speak to collaboration. Yes, like I said, Bamdene did mention about myself. He did mention about Nigerian insurance, NIC, that's Agricultural Insurance Commission. Then we look at all these input supplier. They are ready to collaborate once they have guarantee. So it is about awareness and then doing the right thing.
I think that value chain we really need to speak to opening it up. Bamidele, let me read this question. Infrastructure, it says public power and diesel cost makes the local farmer unable to remain profitable. Solar cost also almost unaffordable to the local farmer. I mean, this is also just still speaking to infrastructure. Bamidele, what do you have to say about this? And I really want us to speak also to how do we make the value chain a bit stronger within the agric sector to help, with this food security crisis that we're having.
So for the big guys, power is not a challenge. They found solution and their power mix. I know people that use pet coke, people use gas, people use and in some places, PHN is even able to supply and give them guarantee of a number of hours within a period, and they pay a little bit more. The real issue is for the SMEs, that's a big challenge. The big organization really don't have, apart from the cost of the power, which I think we need subsidy on. In fact, a number of manufacturers, a number of countries that we see today as developed countries, they subsidize. Just like you said when we heard about the news about the government subsidizing
the kidney, yes, I was coming to that part, yeah.
That's the kind of subsidy we need.
We need,
subsidize the cost of power for manufacturing. So that at the end of the day, manufacturers can access power at a cheaper rate, because power actually is, I think it's more than 10 to 15%. Apart from raw materials, another cost, 10 to 20%, according to man, of the cost of production because of the high cost of power in the country. So this is where that's why I said, if we really want to grow the volume, we want to increase, we want to encourage farmers to produce more, because sometimes farmers want to produce. If they produce this year, the thing get perished, nobody is buying. They will go and next year they want to produce something else. Let me give you a good example of ginger in Nigeria today. Ginger today is very high in cost. You know why? There was a disease outbreak in the major production in Kaduna. Now that disease outbreak reduced the output. Now that output is supposed to be the seedling for the next season. Now they don't have enough seedling. So the people that have seedling are planted now, they have to buy at a high price. Because of ginger, in fact, currently I heard Nigeria is even importing ginger. Now, what has happened there? That is where government can come in. Subsidy. Immediately that kind of issue happens, subsidize the cost of purchasing that seedling and get a lot of farmers to buy. Because when farmers realize it's too high, nobody will buy from them, they will move to another product. they move to another product. If you want to encourage them to be able to, there must be guarantee to be able to purchase this thing from them. Do you know that Nigerian state can create jobs, generate forex, by by supporting production of commodity in their state for the purpose of export? We've worked around this model and we discovered that Nigerian state can make more than what they make from taxes and allocation by supporting farmers, giving them guarantee, buy off what they are selling, what they have cultivated. If in buying, they don't need to pay immediately. They can even give them guarantee to pay in 3 months, ship it out, and then get paid to pay the farmer. That's how much Nigerian state can make to support and this can help to create jobs, at the same time help the government to generate revenue. And these are the two headaches of most of the state subnationals in Nigeria.
And yet we are not seeing any viable solution to that. And this is what I actually want to speak to. How come we're not strategically following up these issues, right? Because again, if you look at it, it's almost like a no-brainer, that we actually have all it takes to make a lot of money out of export. So why are we then now spending so much to import products? And like you rightly said, because I wanted to touch on that a little bit, and I'll come to Hussein, then I'll come to you, Bamide, for your final thoughts, right? What you said, I was saying to myself, if a government really wants to show me that they are very serious about solving the problem of food crisis in Nigeria, one of the things would be that everything that has to do with farming or that has to do with manufacturing of food and all of that has to be subsidized down to the equipment. If I am shipping in a processing equipment, you understand, to process goods, that equipment should be given a tax holiday. Right? If it is seedlings, whatever it is that I am doing, it has to. Then you are showing me, just like the way the president did for healthcare, where pharmaceutical drugs were subsidized, and I talked about the kidney dialysis earlier, that has been subsidized. Same should go for food. Anything that is related to food. But I don't know why, it seems like a no-brainer, but it seems like it's a difficult thing to do. Hussein, let me take your final thoughts, and I'll come to Bamidele for his final thoughts.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I want to stress more on collaboration in agricultural sector in terms of all the value chain. They have to collaborate. And it is necessary for us to know that, just like Bamide said, we have what it takes to survive. We just need to have a proper handshake to make that happen. I give an example of cassava. Cassava is one of a very viable produce, but then at the moment, cassava can actually generate ethanol for pharmaceutical use, for industrial use, for starch, and a lot of things that we do. But we need average of over 60 million liters of ethanol in Nigeria, but we only have less than 10 million production of ethanol in Nigeria. And then we have vast land, and we have issue of bureaucracy in government. For people who wants to, even when you have the willpower, there is no willpower. There needs to be willpower from government officials. There needs to be collaboration, and then
Absolutely.
The power issue has to be subsidized. And there are other collaboration with other bilateral country agreements, maybe from India, from China, to give solar, plants for industrial use at a subsidized rate, so that we can have all these.
And these are actually real solutions
moving forward. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. These are real solutions.
Yes, please.
Bamidele, quickly, because we ran out of time. Your final thoughts.
The biggest challenge, Nigeria's biggest challenge, is political consideration in taking decisions. Political consideration in taking decisions. Any government in Nigeria that will fix some of our problems must be ready to forget about any re-election and do what is necessary, and damn the consequence of whatever happened afterwards. There have been government in this country who took a decision and reversed it the next week and the committee that recommended went to ask the president what happened. The president said political consideration, political exegesis. He has to reverse it, even though it's best for the people. If we don't get to that point where we are ready to take that kind of risk politically, we won't be able to solve our problem. That, in my experience with government agencies and politicians, is our biggest challenge. That's why sometimes they do something that doesn't make sense to us, but it makes sense to them because of political consideration. Thank you.
Wow. Sad. And that's our sad reality. But thank you so much, gentlemen. I'm going to come to your DMs. as I said, because we truly need to find a solution to this food crisis in Nigeria.
No
And as
problem.
much as we can, I believe that, just to add to what the two gentlemen have said, information is powerful, right? I think farmers need to be intentional about gathering more information across board so that you can help yourself. You know, like you said, this information, they are readily available, but we do not know. And if you do not know, you cannot access them. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you for your comments. Keep sharing the links, and please follow us across all social media platforms. We'll see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening.